The Makita 40 volt track saw. That's what this exciting episode is all about. You know, the timing couldn't have been better. Just as I was getting ready to do these cabinets, Makita let me know that this is available. And because Makita gave me this is an ad, by the way. They don't know anything about this review, they're not telling me what to say, anything like that. But you should know that they did give me this for free. But my opinions are still my opinions. Great timing. Just as I was doing cabinets, in comes the new Makita track saw. This isn't my first track saw. I bought this Makita track saw here about 4 years ago. I love this track saw. It's a great track saw. So this new one is basically that track saw, but it's powered by one battery. But if you were hoping for a big upgrade from the corded Makita saw, this might be a little bit of a disappointment. Now, it would be hard to find a bigger track saw fanboy than myself. I swear by them. I think every builder should have one. I've got a video stating that. It lets you get clean factory cut edges with a saw that you can hold in your hands. It's basically like taking a table saw to the thing you're cutting. When it comes to table saws and track saws, my rule of thumb is the smaller the material, the more likely I'm going to use the table saw, and the larger the material, like these big sheets of plywood here, the more likely I'll use the track saw. Either way, you get a nice clean edge, even on these laminate timbers. Now, how is this similar to the corded saw? And let's start with that. It's almost like a case of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's got the same scoring function, which is awesome. It lets you cut a nice 2mm cut first before doing the full depth cut, which helps get that clean edge. It has the same washer on the base that prevents the saw from tipping when it's on the track. And the angle adjustment is the same as the corded saw. A couple of dials on the front and the back, tip it over, tighten them up. The blade diameter is the same, and crucially, it runs on the same Makita tracks. So like I said, maybe it's a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why improve on a thing that a lot of people were already happy with? But that also means that you don't have some of the upgrades that make people choose other brands over Makita. It has the same depth adjustment, which is a little bit, it's just a old-fashioned. You just loosen a bolt and then you slide it up and down. There's no sort of incremental change. I prefer the Festool brand, where you just push it in and you can just feel it kind of clicking slightly as you slide it up. And to top all that off, in one respect, there's actually a downgrade. This blade spins slower than my old Makita track saw blade. So here you go, the Makita 40 volt track saw. So first up, you can see they've used the space gray that seems to be common with these 40 volt tools. Obviously this doesn't affect performance. The top handle is a lot higher too, despite the fact that the blade housing is identical in height. The handle has been changed into a more ready to go position, I guess you could call it. If you look at my corded saw, it's almost vertical. The new 40 volt starts on more of an angle, presumably to help with the forward motion of a track saw cut. And the motor is a lot more compact. When you look at the width of the saw, the whole body of the saw fits above the base. If you look at the old one here, it sticks out where the brushes are. Now, if you have been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I've been using a lot of the Makita 40 volt tools, and there's kind of a mixture. Some of them are redesigns, or you can tell they've been designed from the ground up when they came up with the Makita 40 volt platform. I think the drop saw's that. You know, they've thought about every little component and they've made a great drop saw. And then some of the other tools, like the impact driver, are pretty much carbon copies of their 18 volt version. Now, when they first dropped this off at my house, I thought that's what they've done with the track saw. They've just made the same track saw they've been making for years, but they made it so this battery could power it. But I've been swayed since then, after a couple of weeks of using it. Some of the upgrades are subtle, but they make a difference. So the all-important battery test. Now, I didn't do like a runtime test or anything like that. What I did was I just used it. And I've used it with both the 2.5 amp and the 4 amp 40 volt batteries. I started off with the 2.5 because it's nice and compact. So I put this on this morning, it was fully charged. That's a 2.5 amp 40 volt. and now it's flat. This thing lasted about 4 hours of non-stop cutting. So I'm going to replace it with the 4 amp battery and we'll see how that does. Then I changed over to the 4 amp after that, and I honestly don't know how long that lasted, because the way I use my tools, especially when they're all compatible, is I'll take a battery out of a tool to quickly use a drill or nail gun or something like that, and that's kind of what I did. On the second day I carried on doing some cutting, then I needed the battery for a drill, so I took it out. I think it was probably 2 or 3 days later that I charged the 4 amp. So hopefully that gives you a real world example that might help. I guess the bottom line is it wasn't something that hindered my process. I carried on working like normal, it wasn't an issue. One thing that is annoying about a cordless track saw though is it can stop mid-cut, and if you're like halfway through cutting a bench top or something, I guess you just got to remember to check the battery before you do the crucial cuts. Now one thing that people wish the Makita track saw had was a riving knife. They have that on the Festool track saw. Basically that just puts a wedge in between the timber after you've cut it, and that prevents the timber from clamping together on the blade and forcing the saw to fly back and do some damage. That was the one time that's actually happened to me, but it actually happened to me again the other day while I was filming. Well, I wish I wasn't time-lapsing because I just missed that. Look at that. Kickback. Holy moly. What did I do wrong? I hit it on the score function, not even on the full depth, which makes it only cut 2 mil down, and it kicked back. That gave me a bit of a fright, so I hit up one of the guys at Makita and asked him about the new saw, and I'd heard about the anti-kickback function and I kind of wanted an idea of how it worked. So he said, the XGT model has active feedback sensing technology. This won't 100% stop kickbacks, but its smart function will minimize the effects. Now unfortunately I can't test a thing like that without putting myself in danger, but in theory the sensing of the kickback will make the saw stop the tool dead. It's better than nothing, right? Now if you prefer the Festool or Marfell tools, the Makita 40 volt tool is unlikely to win you over. The thing that's winning me over is the fact that I only need 1 battery. My Makita vacuum over there, that needs 2 batteries. And the problem with needing 2 batteries is you kind of need 4 batteries. You need 2 on the tool, 2 on the charge. That's 4 batteries taken up. And then I've got 5 18 volt batteries, and then I've only got 1 battery loose for, you know, multi-tools and sanders and stuff. Now while I was using the track saw, I used my Festool corded vacuum a lot more than I was using the Makita cordless vacuum. I have my drop saw set up and that's plugged into the cordless vacuum. It was just easier to switch on the Festool every time I went to cut, which, you know, then you ask yourself, shouldn't I just use a corded saw? What's the point? In order for the Bluetooth to work, you need a Bluetooth chip, and it doesn't come with the saw, which I think is kind of crazy. I looked it up and it costs an extra 100 New Zealand dollars to buy the chip, and if you multiply that by all the 40 volt tools you end up getting, this whole dream of a cordless job site becomes a little bit more expensive. So I've got 1 chip, 1 Bluetooth chip, and right now it's in that drop saw over there. I have to take it out of the drop saw, put it into the track saw, and then if I want to do some sanding with a 40 volt tool, I'd have to put the chip in there, and it goes on, right? It seems to be a big selling point of these 40 volt tools, yet it's not a part of the tool unless you pay extra. Yeah. Now of course, bringing up the Bluetooth dust extraction brings up the important topic of dust extraction. How does this perform compared to the corded version? There you go, that's 1 score and 1 cut with the corded. And this is 1 score and 1 cut cordless. Same vacuum, everything. Now the one downgrade, the blade speed. I was concerned about the blade speed when I first got it, especially cutting this stuff behind me, all this laminate, you know, material. It's got that nice crisp layer on top, and the last thing you want to do is chip that. In my mind, it was the slower the blade speed, the more chance the ply has to think about chipping. But bro science, right? I didn't have anything to worry about. I cut all that laminate ply behind me. There's a bunch more stacked down there as well that I've cut, and no chipping. As long as you have the track in the right place and the rubber on the track is hard down, you have good results. So the blade speed hasn't been a problem for me. Now the other Makita track saw that I do not have here is the 2x 18 volt double battery cordless saw. The other cordless track saw before this one. I have used that, and I've got a video comparing that with the Festool version. You can check that out, I'll put it in the link below. I only used that on that one job, and I gave it back to Makita because I didn't want all the hassle of all the batteries. Already have 2 batteries in this vacuum, 2 batteries in the saw. That means, what, I'd have to have 4 batteries charging or something ridiculous? So all that battery juggling was what put me off. You can use a plug-in Bluetooth compatible thing to make your corded vacuum work with any of these battery saws. So that might be something to consider if you want to get the 2x 18 volt. So the Makita 40 volt, it ticks a lot of boxes for me. It has that scoring function. It has a lot of the things that I'm used to with the Makita corded, and I love the Makita corded. It's a great saw. I'm more than happy with it. And it fits my existing tracks. I don't have to go out and buy new tracks. And it has a couple of bonuses chucked in. It takes 1 battery, has slightly better dust extraction, and most importantly, it was free. Makita gave it to me. That's a huge factor. If Makita hadn't have given me the saw, I wouldn't have gone out and bought it. Simply because I already have the corded. I'm not full steam ahead into some future cordless worksite. I don't need that. I often have plugs and everything wherever I work. So it's not that important to me. And the improvements of this aren't enough over my corded Makita track saw to justify the $900 or whatever it is. When I looked it up, this was about $100 more expensive than the 18 volt version, 2x 18 volt. So yeah, you pay a bit more for 40 volt tools. And then if you want that Bluetooth thing, you have to pay another $100 for that chip. So things to consider, right? So in conclusion, the track saw lives alongside the other Makita track saws. It's not much of an upgrade, but if you want a track saw that only needs 1 battery, here you go. Or if you plan to move over to the 40 volt permanently, then this is the track saw for you. So if you are shopping for your first track saw and you want a Makita one and you don't really care about cordless tools, then go out and get the corded. If you're very keen to get a cordless tool, well, pay a bit extra and get the 40 volt, and then you only need 2 batteries, 1 on charge, 1 on the tool. It has everything that the other Makita track saws have, all in one package. I'm going to get rid of the corded one. Even though it seems like a contradiction, but I'm going to give this to Paito, this corded Makita track saw, and I'm going to hold on to this one because for me this one just feels nicer to use. I don't know if it's the fact that it's new or its compact size and the fact that I can have a cordless track saw. I've never really had one, so it'll be interesting to see how my habits change. I mean, what this Makita track saw is a refined Makita track saw that happens to run off 1 battery. It's good. I like it. So there you go, the sponsor of this exciting episode, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to build your online presence and run your business. Now, I pride myself in the quality of the work that I do, and putting my work up on my website so clients can see it is hugely important. And Squarespace make that super easy. They've got portfolios and galleries, automatic image scaling. They have heaps of resources to help you build your website, which is hugely helpful if you're a rookie like me. The platform's really simple and it looks great. So if you're keen to try it out and make a website of your own, Squarespace offer a free trial so you have nothing to lose. Then once you're ready to launch your website, go to squarespace.com/Scott Brown Carpentry to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks Squarespace, appreciate it. That's the Makita 40V track saw. That's going to be my sort of regular track saw now, so I'm sure I'll pick up more things about it. If you've got more questions, I'll answer them in due course. And thanks for watching this exciting review, and I'll see you in the next exciting episode. Oh yeah, and what do you think of my sound wall here? I really like it. Look, I talk here like this, and maybe it's a little echoey, I don't know. But then if I go over here, that's an improvement, right? Maybe I should have had my camera set up there doing all of that. Okay, see you in the next one.